Hi everyone, welcome back for my third video for our Santa's Workshop presentation. So the theme for this video is old favorites and new things. Again, I'm going to be showing you some of the items that may have been shown before, but there's a lot of people that are new to quilting or new to us. And so we just want to show you some of those things that are our favorites, and then some new items that we found in the last year. Again, it's been kind of a crazy year. There's not as many new items as we like to have each year, but we found some really great things and fun things for you to try. So let's get started. So my first old item, my favorite seam ripper, is this Clover, the white handled seam ripper. It's got a super thin, super sharp point and a nice size handle. So the grip of it is really, really comfortable in my hand, okay? So that's just one of my favorite items. As far as the new items, we found these new little finger seam rippers, okay? Looks kind of odd, but you put it on your finger, put it on usually your middle finger. It's got a little spot for your thumb to go, and it's going to be more the way you would hold a needle. So people who like to do hand quilting or any sort of needlework, it's more like that. It's also a little nicer for anybody who has arthritis or stiff hands or fingers, because you don't need to have your hand curled around as much. It's a little lighter touch, and you're just gonna more use this first finger to kind of control it. Okay, so an old favorite, the white Clover seam ripper. The new item is the finger seam ripper. One of my other old favorites, the 120-inch tape measure. It is my goal to get every single quilter in the world to own one of these tape measures. It's a necessity, ladies, okay? If you're doing bigger quilts and you're adding borders, you need to be able to measure those borders fairly accurately, or measure the center of your quilt so you know how big to cut those borders. Okay, we've told you many times, don't just add on a big long piece and then cut it off when you're done. You need to measure your quilt, you need to cut your border to size, and then add it on. And that really makes a huge difference in keeping your quilts nice and square. Okay, so if you're, a lot of you might have a 60-inch tape measure, but we make a lot of quilts that are bigger than 60 inches. The other thing is, please, please, please try to measure your quilts before you come in to buy a quilt back. Okay, it really makes our lives a lot easier if you know the dimension of your quilt before you come into the shop. Okay, sometimes if we're busy, we don't have time for us to measure it, or for us to try to do, math as you're standing at the cutting table, try to determine how big your quilt is, okay? So if you have one of these, you have the ability. You can lay your quilt on a bed, measure it side to side, top to bottom. Doesn't need to be an exact perfect measurement for your quilt backing, because I usually measure it, round it up to the nearest 5. When you come in to buy your backing, we're always going to add on about 10 inches or so that you have enough for your long armor. And then we usually round it up to the next quarter yard after that. So exact measurement isn't needed, just a rough idea of how big your quilt is, okay? And you can't tell me you're putting it on a queen size bed or it's a queen size quilt, because all that you're telling me is that you're putting it on a queen size bed. Doesn't tell me how big the quilt is, okay? And we want to help you get the right amount of fabric for your backing. All right, so one of my old favorites is the 120-inch tape measure. One of the new items we found is this diagonal seam tape, and this goes on your sewing machine. So for anybody that sews a lot of the half square triangles or flying geese, where you're having to put that square on and sew a 1/4 inch from corner to corner, or sew corner to corner, this tape gets put onto the bed of your sewing machine. And I'm trying to find the end here. Okay. And so it's sticky. It's a little sticky. It's not as sticky as masking tape, but more sticky than a Post-it note. So it's kind of in between there. But this red line here is going to be your line for you match that up from coming straight out of the center of your foot on your machine, And then you're going to have a 1/4 inch mark to the right of it and to the left of it. Okay, now a lot of our new Brother machines that we sell, they have a laser light built in that you can turn it on and it's going to give you that mark. But if you don't have that option, this is a great way to put that laser light. I find that I have it on a lot because even as I'm sewing just a standard 1/4 inch, sometimes that blade on a foot or the edge of your foot gets a little wonky. So I can watch my fabric going into my foot all the way back here. I don't have to just watch right up where it's right at the end of my machine where it's hitting that 1/4 inch blade. So you can watch this whole line to keep your fabric straight as you're feeding it into your machine. So again, you can take it off, reuse it until the sticky goes away, and then just grab a new piece. All right. One of my other old favorites, a lot of you have these little scissors. We gave away a lot of them during our 25th anniversary. So I would think many of you have one of these already at home. One of the new items we got to go with them are just these cute little polka dot scissor cases. Okay, it's just a safety method. If you're going to be traveling, if you're going anywhere, you don't want to accidentally reach into your purse and poke yourself. These little scissors are great too because they're only $4.99. So it's something where if you lose it, you haven't lost your good scissors. If you're traveling or you're flying and TSA decides that, you could take down the plane with this, then they might take it away. You haven't lost a big, expensive, good scissors, okay? But yet, they're nice and sharp. They got a decent point on them. So it's a great, handy little scissors with a little protective case to go over it. Okay. One of the new items, we do a lot of chain piecing and quilting, and you would use your little scissors next to your machine to cut all your pieces apart. This one is by the Gypsy Quilter, and in here is a little circle, almost like a little mini rotary blade that's going to give you a razor. So after you've done your chain piecing, I can just take this and just real easily slide them in there and cut all my piecing apart without having to grab the scissors and clip each one individually. So it makes it a little faster, a little easier on your hands and your arms. So again, the chain piece cutter. All right, this is two other old items that I love. One of them is the iron cleaner sheets. Okay, again, as we're dealing, one of my first videos was talking about fusible applique, or anytime you're using any kind of glue, if you use best press, if you use basting spray, your iron can just get sticky. You can get these residues different places in your sewing room, and it can get on the plate of your iron. So this is just a sheet. It almost looks like a dryer sheet, but it's got a chemical on it that when your iron is hot, you're just going to take the sheet, you're going to lay it out, and you're going to take your iron and you're just going to rub it in a circle on this sheet. And it'll help get all of that extra residue off the base of your iron. So especially when you're ironing something white, the last thing you want is those black marks will come off of your iron onto your light colored fabrics. So again, for $4.99, it's great preventative maintenance. Or if you're working with something sticky and you got it on your iron, grab one of these sheets immediately and clean the iron. Don't let the iron cool off and let that substance get hard, okay? If you clean it off right away while it's still warm and soft, you'll have much more success. The other thing in the maintenance is these little cleaning brushes from Eleanor Quilt in a Day. So they have it's almost like a little Velcro piece at the very end. Keeping your machine clean is one of the most important things you can do. Cleaning out under that bobbin case and trying to get into those crevices to get that fuzz out. You do need to have your machine professionally cleaned, every year or 2 years, depending upon how much you use it. They take the whole frame off and there's a lot of dirt you can't get to, but keeping those areas that you can reach as clean as possible really will make a difference with the tension, with the look of your stitch, with the feeding of your feed dogs. It's a thing people forget. They clean under their bobbin case, but look at the little grooves between your feed dogs. They can fill up with fuzz, and if your fabric isn't feeding correctly, that can be part of the reason, because those little prongs can't grab anymore because they're filled in with fuzz in between. Okay, so keeping your machine clean is very important. And then one of the other new items we found are these little row markers. Okay, so this set it's going to have your full alphabet. This is your F. And it's also going to have your numbers 0 through 9. Okay, so no matter what kind of pattern you have, some designers like to use numbers, some designers like to use letters. Okay, so this little set comes in white or in purple. Again, it's by the Gypsy Quilter Company. And you can just stick a safety pin through the little loop on it and mark each block or mark each row or do whatever you need to do to keep yourself organized while you're sewing that quilt top together. Again, another one of my old favorites is the press and roll, right? This is in lieu of having a hot iron at your cutting table. Sometimes you need to almost press in between each seam depending upon the block. This little tool has a beveled wheel, so your center is going to have all your pressure right down the center, but then it kind of bevels away to keep it nice and tight right here. So as you're rolling those seams, they're going to be pressed well, and you don't have to get up and run over to the iron every 2-3 seams that you're sewing because you need to keep adding it on. So it's just a great tool to have at your sewing station for those times you need to press in between going over to the big pressing station with the iron. And then another new item that we have are these little charms. They can go on a zipper, they can go on a scissors, they could go on a rotary cutter. You might have to put an extra little ring on your rotary cutter, but they got the little clam hooks and you can hook them onto anything. So they're just kind of cute. Again, when you're going to retreats or different classes, it's nice to have something marked so that you know which one is yours, because a lot of the cutters and scissors and different things all look the same. And then the last items I have, again, we talked about this earlier, but this is my favorite ruler. This 3.5 by 11 quick trim ruler has lots of lines on there to help you with squaring up. It's got the little dots, holes up here, so you can use it for drawing circles, and it just fits your hand. It's just the right size for any quilter. It's that ruler that once you have one, I don't care what you're doing, you're always looking for this ruler. Okay. One of the other specialty rulers that I think is a good one for every quilter to have in their library is the Tri-Rex ruler. And this is going to make those funky little blocks like this, right? You see them in a lot of patterns. It's not a half square triangle. It's not a quarter square triangle. It's just a different angle. But they're used a lot because you can make really unique looking. It helps you to create circles with straight lines and triangles, okay? So this little set, the Tri-Rex set, is going to give you 2 rulers that will fit together, gives you multiple sizes from 1.5 inch all the way up to 6.5 inch. So if you don't have this set, along with that Dresden plate ruler, which I think is another classic ruler that never is wrong for a quilter to have, the Tri-Rex set is a ruler that you will go to, you'll find it in a lot of patterns. And it's much easier to do with the ruler set than to try to do it without it, just trying to fit things together by measuring. And then the last item I have is another new ruler by Creative Grids. So we went from my favorite 3.5 inches by 12.5 inches up to this big easy ruler. This is 12.5 inches wide by 24.5 inches long. So it's a great ruler for when you're dealing with 10-inch squares because you can get the whole thing on there. Up until now, their biggest ruler was 8.5. If you're dealing with up to 1/3 of a yard of fabric and you don't have to add another ruler in to get those exact measurements. We all know that the best way to measure is with your ruler, not with your cutting mat. The lines on the cutting mat are not as accurate as the lines on the ruler. One, the way that it's printed, and 2, just from all the cutting, they can start to get deteriorated, so you don't always know exactly where you're cutting. So anytime you can use a line on your ruler to do your measuring and cutting, it will always be more accurate. So this ruler is now giving you up to 12 inches in width but up to 24 inches in length to do all of that cutting that you're looking to do. All right, so that's all I have for my third video. I hope you've enjoyed these. I hope you can join us for some of our Santa's Workshop items. We're going to have a display in the shop with all of these items that we have on hand. You can call, you can go online and see if you can find them there. Again, with the supply thing, we're not always guaranteeing that everything will be available online to purchase. You might have to call and talk to us to see if it's still available in the shop. So thank you for joining us, and I hope you have a great day and a great holiday, and we can't wait to see you again in the shop. Bye.